episode of Sailor Moon Crystal, Chibiusa finally appears, guns a-blazing. There's a brand new villain organization by the name of Black Moon, and one of the Sailor Senshi has been kidnapped. But before I begin my formal review, I just want to give a quick shout-out / shameless plug-in to one of my video reviews. I've been reviewing a lot of anime this season. There's a lot of great new shows, but the one show that I need to recommend the most to all of you is Death Parade. I just reviewed the 5th episode, and if you haven't checked it out yet, here's your chance. Alright, let's get on with the review. So this week's episode introduces the character of Chibiusa, or Chibi Sailor Moon, who is basically this smaller, pink-haired version of Usagi, and she just sort of comes out of nowhere, fallen out of the sky, and in the previous episode she appeared at the very end, pointing a gun right at Usagi's face. And it's actually just a trick. It's actually one of those fake toy guns that shoots out a flower, and this was all just deployed to try and scare her so that she could get the legendary silver crystal. Although, I don't know why she needs it. It already looks like she has something just like that around her neck, which was definitely hinted at in this week's episode, and definitely observed from Luna, who also doesn't even know who this little Chibiusa is. And she has this weird hypnotizing spell that she puts on her family, and both Mamoru Chiba and even Usagi, and now she's basically a member of the family, and she's going to be keeping close tabs on Usagi. All at the same time, there is a brand new evil organization known as Black Moon, with even more androgynous men and women. And what I really love about this organization is they're kind of like the antithesis to the Sailor Senshi. Like, their whole thing is they're called Black Moon. They have these black crescent moons on their forehead, and they actually have some pretty cool designs, and I really can't wait to see what they're going to do. They seem like they're going to be a lot more interesting than Queen Metalia and her goons. But their big plan, big shock, is that they want the legendary silver crystal. And my theory right here is this, and it's probably just because I remember watching this from the old Toonami show, but I believe that Chibiusa is actually the daughter of Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask, and she somehow came from the future, and that's why she's being chased by these Black Moon guys. I think they're also from the future, and they're going to reveal this eventually. But in this week's episode, they're not only trying to get the legendary silver crystal, they're also trying to capture the Sailor Senshi themselves. And this week, they're going after Sailor Mars, which pisses me off because she's like my favorite member of the group. She's so awesome. And in this week's episode, she goes up against this one member of Black Moon, which she's a part of this special group which is known as the 4 Spectre Sisters, and her name is Cone, and she has these weird goons that kind of remind me of the Putty Patrol from Power Rangers that the Sailor Senshi just completely decimate, and that's because they actually have some new powers this week thanks to their new weird little rods that they have, which allow them to go through their transformation sequences and pretty much just annihilate all of these guys. The action is still not impressive and really isn't anything to write home about, but it's definitely a step up from the first season. This one was just way more exciting, especially at the end. But eventually, you realize that it looks like every single person that's going to go up against a Sailor Senshi is going to have a power very similar to what they have. And Cone actually had this blue fire, which she was actually using to burn people alive all over Tokyo, which is pretty freaking dark for the series when you think about it. Sailor Mars ends up getting captured in the blue fire, and when Usagi looks like she's about to be beheaded by a big powerful attack, Tuxedo Mask appears from out of nowhere, and with her combined powers of love, she now has a brand new ability, which is this Star Rod, which apparently belonged to Queen Serenity, and she's able to just completely blow away Cone in one swift attack. Clearly, their new powers are way more destructive than they used to be, and hopefully that will eventually lead to some slightly better action scenes. That said, the ending of this week's episode was pretty entertaining, and it seems like the arc in this one is going to escalate a little bit more than in the first season, and I'm just overall kind of excited about this episode, which I didn't expect to be, especially going into this and how much I really didn't enjoy the end of the last season. So, what's the rundown? On this week's episode of Sailor Moon Crystal, I know now why they call it Crystal, because all of the villains are completely obsessed over getting the legendary silver crystal. Because, you know, it's super powerful, all the energy in the universe, blah 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 blah, Deus Ex Machina device. What's really interesting about this brand new arc is the villains and Chibiusa. Now, I remember originally, back in the day, watching this show on Toonami, nobody liked the little version of Usagi at all. everybody hated her character. And you know what? I don't really like her that much here either. You know, she's not a very likable character. The only thing going for her is that she's got a cute girl design, and that's really it. Otherwise, she frankly just comes across as, well, kind of a bitch, especially to Usagi, and, you know, maybe she doesn't even realize, like, what her connection to Usagi even is. She seems pretty shocked towards the end of the episode when she sees them going through their transformation sequences, which takes about 3 minutes. Yeah, definitely not the best thing in the world. But then again, Sailor Moon is definitely known for its big, lengthy transformation sequences, and they still look pretty cool, if that's anything. But still, my favorite thing about this week's episode is that they focused on Sailor Mars, who's an awesome character, I think has the coolest movesets. I mean, who wouldn't want the ability to conjure fire and just destroy your enemies like that? I mean, she's no Roy Mustang or anything, but she definitely held her own in this week's episode, and the battle was probably more interesting than just about anything I saw from the first half of the series, so that's already got me excited. And I want to learn more about the Black Moon Clan and their leader, who is known as Prince Demond, I believe that's his name, and they have like their own group of, like I said, androgynous people, and even this one guy known as Wise Man, who is a wise man because, you know, he's got a crystal ball and everything. So it was a pretty decent episode right here. I really like it. And there are just little moments here that I think are clever. I love the fact when there was this scene where Sailor Mars went to school, she was doing this cultural festival with people, and she was going to be a fortune teller. And I loved how just hanging out with Usagi and the other characters has sort of brought her out of her shell a little bit, and she even comments that she's talking like Usagi and her other friends, and I like that. It just makes her seem a little more realistic. On the technical side of things, animation, artwork, pretty simple, pretty standard from what you've seen from the rest of the series. I will say, though, that it was just a little bit better in this one, and there was some brand new imagery in the opening this week. Same song, new imagery, mostly of the villains and some other Sailor Senshi, you know, like Chibi Usa, and I believe there's also Sailor Pluto in there. I think that's who that is. The only reason I even remember that that's Sailor Pluto is because I just watched a video on YouTube recently, which was from Animation Domination, which is one of Fox's shows, and there was just a huge riff in making fun of the fact that Pluto is no longer a planet, so she no longer has any powers. If you guys want to see that, I'll put a link for it in the description box below at the end if you want to check it out. Otherwise, this was a pretty decent episode of Sailor Moon Crystal. Nothing too mind-blowing, but I really think it's going in the right direction now, and now that they finally established all of the characters, maybe that's why this is just feeling a lot fresher. So I'm excited, actually, for the next arc of Sailor Moon Crystal. I really wasn't feeling the end of the last one, but I'm going to hold out hope that this one is going to be exciting. So check it out, guys. If you're either a fan of the old Sailor Moon anime series, or if you've read the manga version, check this out. You might see something you like. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And before you guys leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Sailor Moon Crystal. Are you excited about the brand new arc? What do you think of the brand new characters and villains? And what do you want to see from the next half of Sailor Moon Crystal? Remember, guys, if you have not subscribed to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. It's real easy to do. That way you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews and brand new podcast show. You guys can also follow us on social media like Facebook and on Twitter.